Good evening. I'm Janet Jackson, President and CEO of the United Way of Central Ohio, and I was thrilled to be asked to join you this evening to share a little bit of my journey. And as I sat and listened to my dear friend Carrie Anderson, it's so appropriate that I follow her. Not from North Carolina, but I hail from the state of Virginia. I was born and raised on a tobacco farm like Carrie. Now, we'll share with you that in terms of some of those first challenges, and we didn't know that we were growing up in terms of what most folks would say was abject poverty, but when you describe having an outhouse, no running water, you get the gist of what I'm talking about. I will share with you, though, that I was raised in a warm and loving family. I would almost call it that village, until something changed. When I went to elementary school, I went to school with all African-American children, because although the law had been changed nationally by the Supreme Court, saying that schools had to be integrated, somehow in my part of the state, they hadn't gotten the word. And I believe that I failed to share with you another important fact about me. I will turn 60 years of age this November. I was born in 1952. So I grew up in the segregated South, on that tobacco farm. But when it was time to go to high school, a few of us, a very few African-American students, made the decision to integrate an all-white high school, Randolph Henry High School. I find it rather ironic that, again, my friend Carrie was a student bus driver, because I found myself being the only black student on a bus with Caucasian students who, quite frankly, had been taught to hate me simply because of the color of my skin. And it made it a little bit more challenging because that bus was driven by a student bus driver. I survived those 2 or 3 years before the schools became completely integrated. There's still some memories for me that are very challenging to recall because it was difficult, both in the classroom and on the bus. But I persevered. I had the love of my family and the complete support of all of those teachers I'd had in elementary school. Now, unlike Carrie, I got on a plane a little bit earlier than she did, because when I graduated high school in 1971, also engaged, much to my mother's chagrin, she put me on a plane the day after I graduated high school, and I flew on a Piedmont prop plane to Columbus, Ohio, because her sisters lived here, and I was on my way to an institution that truly changed my life. So as I stand here on the campus of Otterbein, I proudly share with you that I'm a Wittenberg Tiger. And those 4 years were some of the best years of my life in terms of growing up. The next thing I would share with you about my journey is that I went on to law school. And I can't really see you because the slide is so bright, but I'm assuming that there's an audience of wonderful women and a few men. And it's really embarrassing for me to share this story with you, because you might say, how did I end up in law school back in 1975? Well, I always like to say that my mother sent me to Wittenberg to achieve 3 things: a degree, with a certificate in teaching to fall back on, and a husband. And at that particular time, I thought I was going to be able to do all 3, and I had met a senior when I was a freshman. And that wonderful man encouraged me to go to law school. As a matter of fact, ladies, I have to tell you, I only went to law school because I lost a bet to David. I went, I didn't like it, I didn't like the people, but I persevered. I graduated and I came back here to Ohio to join the office of the Attorney General's office, still not thinking that I was going to be a trial lawyer. And fortunately, I worked in an office where there was opportunity, and I realized from my first trial that being in a courtroom was like being on a stage, and that acting bug had bit me. Great career, moved up to Cleveland, went into private practice. So the next kind of big challenge in my life, and she's sitting in the audience today, I didn't know she was going to be here. In 1987, I was appointed to the bench, becoming the first African-American female judge in this county. Paula Brooks called me in November of 1986 and suggested that I might want to pursue being appointed to the bench. And I think I told Paula the same thing that I told David, my fiance. You got to be out of your mind. I said, you know, it wasn't my career goal, and I knew something, that even if the governor appointed me, that I'd have to win. And I have always, going back to that tobacco farm, believed in full employment. I needed a paycheck. But Paula and others encouraged me and helped me dream a dream that was bigger than one that I could have for myself. So I pursued the appointment. I was appointed in January of 1987. And for the next 11 months, I crisscrossed this county, going to places that had few people who looked like me back in 1987. But we persevered. It was a wonderful part of my career. I moved to the city attorney's office in 1997. That was my goal. That was something that I wanted. I had decided along the way that as much as I loved the bench and the judgeship, I really liked power. City attorney is a much more powerful person, I believe, than almost any judge in this county. So I went over to the city attorney's office. I had a fabulous 6 years. And one of the things that I so enjoyed about it were the young people who worked for me and being able to shape their lives. And then in 2002, another wonderful woman paid a visit to my office. Her name is Tanny Crane. She leads her family's company business here. Showed up in my office. Lots of folks thought that I would probably be running statewide in the next statewide election. And Tanny shared a thought with me that once again changed my life. My predecessor, Brian Gallagher, had moved to Washington, D.C. to become president of the United Way of America. The local board had a search for over a year, and they had not found a candidate. When Tanny came to see me, she says, Janet, in addition to serving this community as a trial lawyer, as a judge, and as a city attorney, you have served for years as board members of many nonprofits, including the United Way. You have truly proven to us how you can serve this community. So she said, would you consider giving up your career in the political world and come over to United Way? In January, I served my 9th anniversary of being president of this United Way. I have led an incredibly blessed life. Yes, there have been challenges. Many times, other people had to have dreams for me to pursue when I couldn't have dreams. And one of the reasons that I am so pleased to be where I am now is that I have the opportunity to serve women, young women, and girls. And as your president said earlier in her remarks, I become disheartened because many times I feel as if you have fewer opportunities than I did, even under the circumstances in which I was raised. And so I hope that over the next day or 24 hours, you will be inspired to dream big dreams, to establish those goals that I couldn't do at your age. And although I'm almost 60, I'm still climbing, I'm still dreaming, and I'm still persevering. Thank you.